Good morning, class. Today we are going to do a lesson on writing quadratic equations given the vertex and a point on the graph. And before that, we have a little warm-up here. Now, I'm going to give everyone about 5 minutes. Let's take no longer than 5 minutes to get the warm-up done. And then we will discuss the warm-up. Okay, if you're done with your warm-up, now let's take a look at what you've done. Now, what do we do with number one? What are we supposed to do with number one? We're either asked to solve or simplify. Now, simplifying in this case is expanding the parentheses. So, what do we do here? How do we write it? A square means we multiply the parentheses by itself. Okay, and now you can use the for method. And we have use another parenthesis, x times x times 1 times x, and 1 times 1. Don't forget the -3. Now all we have to do is simplify. Now let's simplify what's in the parentheses. You have x squared plus, collect your like terms. Identify your like terms, collect them. Finally, what do we do now? We have something outside here to distribute. So let's distribute the 2 to all 3 terms in there. And we will have 2x squared. 2 times 2x is 4x. 2 times 1 is 2. And don't forget the -3. So one more step to go. It looks like we have to collect more like terms. Now the like terms are 2 and the 3. Finally, we have 2x squared plus 4x. 2 minus 3 is -1. Okay, this is how we simplify it or expand it. Now the next warm-up, we are given a function and we're asked to solve for a. Now, what are we given here? We're given the x, and we're given the f of x. So, let's plug it in. Now, how do we plug it in? What is f of x? We are given that it is 5. A is what we need to look for, and what is x? 2. Let's plug them in first. That's always your first step. Now, what do we do? Simplify it. It looks like we have something in here to simplify. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. Keep simplifying as we go along. 1 squared is 1. 1 times a is also 1a. Of course, it's just a. Now, what do we have here? We need to solve for a. We need to get a by itself. So this is a simple one-step solution. What do we do to both sides of the equation? We have a +2. We need to subtract 2 both sides, or you can bring the +2 to the other side and let a be all by itself. And finally, 5 minus 2 is 3, so your a is 3. Okay, this is the warm-up that we need to do. This warm-up will hopefully jog your memory on the algebraic skills that we will need to do this lesson today. So now let's move on to the next step of the lesson. Okay, everyone has a handout, so let's turn to the reading of the lesson. Okay, there are two forms of the quadratic equation. One is the standard form, which looks like f of x equals to ax squared plus bx plus c. Now a, b, and c are constants. We have to be given those numbers to find out what the function is. Now the next form is the vertex form, which is f of x a x parenthesis x minus h squared plus k. Now in this case, h and k is your vertex. Only the vertex is represented by h and k. Now, in today's lesson, we are going to write the quadratic equation or function given the vertex and a point. Now, which form do you think we're going to use? Now remember, we are given a vertex and a point. We are given a vertex and a point. We're going to use the vertex form because we are given the vertex and a point. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to use this vertex. And we're going to change it to the standard form by using the algebraic manipulation in which we did the warm-up for. Okay, now let's look at the guided practice here. Let's look at the guided practice. What are we given here? We are given the vertex. Okay, let me write the vertex form here. Okay, f of x equals to a parenthesis x minus h squared plus k. Now, we are given the vertex. Can somebody read out the vertex that we are given? 1, -3. And we are given a point. Can somebody read out the point? -1, 5. Okay, now see a lot of numbers there. Now, we are going to identify what is 1, what is -3, what is -1, and what is 5. Now, what is 1? Now remember, your vertex is always in the point of h, k. Now it's always good to write it next to the point because we know that 1 represents h, -3 represents k. And what is your point? What's the first number of the ordered pair? Your x. What is the second number of your ordered pair? It's your y. But what is the y in this case? We usually write an equation y equals to something. In this case, it's f of x. Your y is really f of x. So we are going to say that x f of x instead of putting a y there. Now, is everyone clear on this? Now that we've identified the points and the values, it should actually make it easier for us to substitute them. Okay, now, how do we substitute them? Let's do this together. Let's take your equation. Okay, first of all, I'm going to begin substituting here. What is your f of x? What is the value of f of x? the value of f of x is 5. Okay, let's begin to substitute. Now again, I'm going back to this equation here because this is what I'm using. What is your a? There's another constant here that we need to find. Now the point is, the whole point of this exercise is looking for a. We need to solve for a. So we don't know. A is something that we are trying to solve. Let's leave it there. What is your x? -1. If you have a -1, put it exactly as it is. Let's look up for your signs. Now what is your h? Minus h is 1. Don't forget to close the parentheses and square it. Plus, what is your k? What is your k? Your k is -3. So let's put it exactly what it is, a -3. Let's look out for your signs. Now that we've gotten that, simplify them. Let's write it here. 5 equals to -1 minus 1. Let's recall our negative numbers. -1 minus 1. Anyone? It's -2. Big square. Plus -3. Plus -3. A plus and a minus gives you a minus. Okay. Everyone follow? No. Let's keep simplifying it as we go along. 5 equals to -2 squared. -2 squared is the same as -2 times -2. Now what is the answer? Is it 4 or -4? It's +4. Oops. When a disappeared, it should be here. Yeah, the a should be there. Okay, so we have a -4. Let's put, I'm sorry, a +4. Let's put a 4a there. Now, what do? We have a two-step equation here. What needs to be done? Now remember, you're solving for a. Yeah, you always need to bear in mind that you're solving for a. Okay, what needs to be done here? We want to get a by itself, so what should we do? This is a two-step equation. We should try to deal with this -3. To get rid of this -3, we move it to the other side. It becomes 5 plus 3 equals 4a. And let's keep simplifying it as we go along. 5 plus 3 is a equals to 4a. Now, second step. 4 apples cost $8. What do we do to both sides? Do we divide or do we multiply? The 4 is dividing the 4 is multiplying the a, so we should divide. Divide both sides, and you'll get finally 2 equals to a. And now we have solved our a. So now we can rewrite our quadratic equation. Now, what do we need to rewrite? Now let's go back to this equation here. An equation should always have the f of x and x. A is something that we just found out, so we are going to substitute it. It's 2. We need your x to be there. Then we need to substitute the h, which is 1. And substitute the k as well, which is -3. Plus -3, I'm just going to go ahead and put the 3 here. So this is my equation in Vertex form. Now again, you need the f of x to be there, and you need the x to be there. Yeah. Okay, now this is just one part of the solution here. The other part is, I need to put it in standard form. Once you've gotten your vertex form, you can put it in your standard form. But how do we do that? Okay. Now if you go back to your warm-up, you could actually see the exercise that you just did, and you can expand it. Okay, let's start from here. Now remember, this is the vertex form. Now we need the standard form. What do we do with this equation here? All we have to do is expand it. Let's start from the original. So how do we expand this? We have a square here. Write out the parentheses. 2, multiply the parentheses by itself, and the minus 3. So again, we're going to use the following as we did in the warm-up. And so what we're going to have is x times x, x squared, x times -1 minus x, -1 times x minus x, -1 times -1. Is it a positive 1 or a negative 1? It's a positive 1. And don't forget the minus 3. Let's keep simplifying what's inside the parentheses. And don't forget to distribute the number that's, the coefficient that's outside. And we will have 2x squared, 2 times -2 minus 4x, 2 times 1 is 2, minus 3. And finally, do we have like terms here which we can collect? Yes, we can. 2 minus 3 is? 2 minus 3, is it -1 or is it positive 1? It's -1. Now this is your standard form. Okay, any questions so far? Is everyone following? The vertex form, the standard form. These two equations are really the same. They just take on a different form. Now, the reason why we have two forms is, here in the vertex form, we can easily tell that your vertex is 1, -3. Now here, it's not so easy to tell. But we leave it in this form for some other purposes. Now, let's move on to the next part of the class where we have a guided practice. Now I need everyone to try. We have the independent practice on your handout. Now I need everybody to try. Now identify the 6 steps that we just did. Okay? Now I'm going to give everyone 10 minutes to do the independent practice, and before we work them out together. Okay. Now in your independent practice, you are given, let's write the vertex form of the equation. F of x equals a x minus h plus k. Now in your step one, what do we do? You identify what you're given. You're given your vertex as -2, 4, and your point as 1, -5. Okay, so the first step is always to identify your variables and your constants. Okay, so now let's identify them. H equals to, now it's good to actually write it. It's good to actually write it next to the point that you're given, so that way it's easier to see. H is actually 1, K is actually, H is actually -2, K is actually 4. Now what's your second step? Identify your points. X equals to 1, f of x, which is y, equals to -5. Okay. Now, what should your third step be? Plug them in. Okay, let's plug them in. Remember, we're using this form. And remember, what are we doing again? We're trying to solve for a. So let's plug them in. F of x, -5. A is what we need to look for. X is 1 minus, we always put the minus there because that's what the definition is. What is your h? If your h is -2, leave the -2 there. Use a parenthesis if you have to. Yeah, look out for your signs. If your h is a -2, it should be a -2. There should be a -2 inside there, even though there is already a negative. And what is your k? 4. So all we have to do is simplify them. Okay? We have -5. 1 minus -2 is 1 minus -2 is 2. Negative signs give you a positive. So 1 plus 2 is 3. And 3 squared is 9. So I'm going to put a 9a. And what was our k? Our k should be 4. Okay. Looks like this is also another two-step equation. What needs to be done first? You can take the 4 and move it to the other side. Now this is a positive 4. When it goes to the other side, it becomes negative. So -5 minus 4 gives you a -9 equals 9a. And we know what a is. A is -9 equals 9a. Divide 9 by both sides. -9 divided by 9 is -1. Okay. That should be your step 4 actually. You're finding out what a is, which is -1. Now, step 5. You get the equation in the vertex form. Now that you have your a, what you always need to do is substitute your a and your h and your k. Those are the 3 things that you always need to substitute, because in the end you should only have an f of x and an x. So let's do that. We have our a, which is -1. I'm just going to put a negative outside the parentheses. We usually don't put the 1. Now what is your h again? -2. X minus -2 is +2. Notice that when your h is a negative, it becomes a positive inside the vertex form. Don't forget the square. +4. Okay, finally, we have a vertex form. What do we need now? We need the standard form. That will be step 6. So what are we going to do? We're going to expand this. Okay, let's expand it. Leave the negative outside. Okay, let's deal with this 2 parentheses. Leave the negative outside. X times x, x squared. X times 2, 2x. 2 times x again, 2x. 2 times 2 plus 4. Okay, what do we have here? Let's collect our like terms and distribute the negative. Okay, we have f of x. 2x plus 2x. This is just 4x. So I'm going to, and then I'm going to distribute the negative here. Negative x squared minus 4x minus 4. And don't forget, you have a +4. Okay, is everyone following? Now finally, do we have any more like terms? -4 plus 4. -4 plus 4 gives you 0. And finally, your standard form has only 2 terms, which is fine, because it's really, your third term is really 0 here. -4 plus 4 is 0. However, zeros are usually not written, and we can leave it like this. Okay, so now the 6 steps to finding the quadratic equation when you're given a vertex and a point. We need to find the vertex form first, then we can find the standard form. Okay, so I hope everyone has actually I hope everyone is able to understand what we just did today. Now, just for a closure, what is the purpose of this activity? What was the purpose of actually today's lesson? To be able to write quadratic equations when you're given the vertex of the function and a point on the graph. When we talk about a point, it typically means any point that lies on the graph, as long as it lies on the graph. Now, vertex, each quadratic equation only has one vertex. They may have many points, but they only have one vertex, which is your HK. And then what do we do? Your purpose is actually to look for A. You have f of x, you have x, you have h, and you have k. Out of the 5 variables, you have 4 of them. We can find the 5th one by simply plugging and chugging, and what we did just now. We fill in whatever we are given, and we finally work it out to finally find A. And once you have A, what do? We go back and plug it back in. We leave the h and the k there, because that is your vertex. Now your function should always end up with the f of x intact, as well as your x. This is your A, which is -1, the 1 is invisible. This is your h, which is -2, it's always the opposite sign, and this is your k, which is the follow the sign, positive form. And once you have the equation in the vertex form, you could find the equation in the standard form. All you have to do is do some algebraic manipulation here, and you obtain it. Now, please note that these two things are the same. They are the same. They are just in different forms. And with that, we can conclude our lesson with everyone taking an exit quiz. And I hope to see everyone tomorrow.